Are you going to extend a deadline for trade talks with these countries?
I would, but I don't think we're going to have that necessity. We made a great deal with China. We're very happy with it. We have everything we need, and we're going to do very well with it, and hopefully they are too. That was a very big one. As you know, we did with the UK, and I tell you what, we're rocking in terms of deals now. At a certain point, we're just going to send letters out, and I think you understand that, saying this is the deal. You can take it or you can leave it. You don't have to use it. You don't have to shop in the United States, as I say. So at a certain point, we'll do that. We're not quite ready. We're dealing with quite a few countries, and they all want to make a deal with it.
Donald Trump took a break out of his very busy schedule of destroying the country, tweeting until 4 a.m. and losing his mind over any given thing tonight to drop by the Kennedy Center and see a play at an institution that he is trying to ruin. Now, that in and of itself is not a story, but his walk on the red carpet was because after Trump was confronted by a Fox reporter about protests breaking out all over the country, he completely melted down. And that was apparent to everyone, including Melania, who was pretty disturbed in her scheduled time with Trump. We're going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in supporting the work that we are doing on this channel. But before we get into Trump's meltdown, of course, we need a bit of context on the story that got him so upset on the red carpet, and that was Rachel Maddow breaking it all down here.
Saturday, it's Flag Day. Happy Flag Day. It's also President Trump's birthday. It's also the day of his big North Korean dictator-style military parade in Washington. More tanks and guns unloading this afternoon outside Washington, D.C. Look at that. Saturday is also the day organizers are planning the next very large nationwide day of protest against Trump and what Trump is doing to the country. Even as Trump panics and inexplicably calls in the military over protests in Los Angeles, this Saturday's protests are being organized by a large coalition of groups and grassroots organizers in all 50 states, all across the country. They're calling it No Kings, the No Kings Day of Defiance. They said this today, quote, "The No Kings mobilizations on June 14th were already planned as a peaceful stand against authoritarian overreach and the gross abuse of power this administration has shown. Now, this military escalation," meaning what's happening in Los Angeles, only confirms what we have known. This government wants to rule by force, not serve the people. From major cities to small towns, we will rise together and say we reject political violence. We reject fear as governance. We reject the myth that only some deserve freedom. On Saturday, June 14th, more than 1,800 rallies will take place across the country, peaceful, organized, and united. The No Kings movement has posted a map online showing where those 1,800 plus rallies will be held. I should tell you, and I think this is important, of those 1,800, more than 100 of those have been added to the map since Trump announced that he was sending the National Guard into LA. If he was hoping to get people to not protest, it's backfiring. Organizers are going to hold a series of online trainings this week ahead of the big day. Tomorrow, it's a Know Your Rights training that they're doing nationwide by Zoom so people can better understand how to interact with law enforcement or provocateurs during the demonstrations. Then 2 days later, on Thursday, another big nationwide Zoom call. They're calling it a pre-mobilization mass call. That's for anybody who's planning to participate. Potentially tens of thousands of people are going to be on that call. It's basically just to talk strategy ahead of the big day Saturday. But tonight, as the Trump administration does its best to try to turn the streets of LA into a war zone, as Trump's flop, sweat, and lack of political ideas is manifested in National Guardsmen and now Marines being sent to the streets of LA, the determination of the No Kings organizers appears to be clear. Many protests, bigger than ever, peacefully, joyfully, everywhere, and unstoppable. There's nothing he fears.
Now, we will see in just a second why that story is such important context, but I am so excited for the 14th because it's not Donald Trump's birthday. We're not celebrating that. We're not allowing him to play dictator. It is no King's Day. And Americans across the country will be uniting to oppose this authoritarian administration that continues to fail in everything that it does. And that's how Donald Trump started getting so upset, because he went full taco when he was asked about some trade deals that just aren't coming through. Then we're going to get to him, asked about the protest.
What are you looking forward to tonight? Maybe.
So quiet, Jeff.
I have a my question is on trade. Would you be willing to extend the deadline for trade talks with these countries?
I would, but I don't think we're going to have that necessity. We made a great deal with China. We're very happy with it. We have everything we need, and we're going to do very well with it, and hopefully they are too. That was a very big one. As you know, we did with the UK, and I tell you what, we're rocking in terms of deals. Now, at a certain point, we're just going to send letters out, and I think you understand that, saying this is the deal. You can take it or you can leave it. You don't have to use it. You don't have to shop in the United States, as I say. So at a certain point, we'll do that. We're not quite ready. We're dealing with quite a few countries, and they all want to make a deal with us, every one of them.
Who's next? Who you?
Oh God, he just keeps doing it, doesn't he? Yeah, there's a trade deadline coming up. I'll extend it. Well, why not? The deal is not going to get done. He's just an embarrassment. Where are any of the deals weren't? We promised a deal with China like a week ago, but also 3 weeks ago and also 2 months ago. There's no deals. The deals just aren't coming. But that's not the only thing that is upsetting Donald Trump, because like I said, a Fox reporter confronted him over the protests that are about to be breaking out on his birthday. And yeah, he didn't like it too much and just melted down over LA. And take a look at very disturbed Melania during that rambling.
If this turns into another summer of unrest, what are you prepared to do, sir?
About what?
If this turns, well, the protests have spread now to 16 cities across the U.S. If this turns in...
That's what you're saying. Do I believe you? I don't think so.
Well, I got that from the
I
Fox
can
News
tell you
green
that
room.
What we have is a situation in Los Angeles that was caused by gross incompetence. They didn't have the police to handle it. The police were asking us to come in. They were very late. We had to go in to save a lot of ICE officers, as you know, who were held up. They were holed up in a building, and they were being attacked. And the military went in, the National Guard went in and got them. The police weren't able, unfortunately, to move fast enough, but we moved.
So I'm sure that somewhere in Melania's contract, it does stipulate that every once in a while she has to get out of the house with Trump, but it clearly doesn't say anything about how her face looks, or maybe that's just like the plastic surgery. I don't know if you ask me. Her and Trump are actually starting to look more and more identical every day. I don't know if they're doing the same orange makeup. Melania doesn't live at the White House, so I know that the containers aren't getting switched up. The Sephora products are not being exchanged between them, but she did not seem to be enjoying her husband's meltdown. I really don't know who could, except for apparently anyone who's willing to fully embrace the cult of Trump. And we talked about this just a few hours ago in a video about how Trump screamed the soldiers that would be behind him at Fort Bragg to make sure they were giving their full commitment. Not to their oath to the Constitution, not even to our country, but to Trump. And that is what Trump is expecting out of those he is sending to LA right now. And Tim Kaine called out how scary that is, and I want to hear from the senator right here.
Senator, what is happening in terms of oversight of this nearly unprecedented and historic use of a president over the wishes of a state governor activating that States National Guard and then mobilizing 700 active duty Marines?
Nicole, this is hugely problematic. I think it's illegal, unprecedented, and I think it is a very dangerous priority, and I expressed that position in an Armed Services Committee hearing yesterday. The National Guard, let's start there. This is a partnership that goes back centuries between the President and governors and guardsmen and women. And the Guard is a partnership between presidents and governors. It's not a battering ram to be used against states. The Guard gets deployed when a governor asks for it, or sometimes the president will ask a governor to loan troops to an endeavor. I did that when I was governor of Virginia. I lent Virginia Guard members to assist President George W. Bush on border operations. But it's a cooperative arrangement, a partnership, not a tool and not a bludgeon. The president's use of it is escalatory. It was not asked for, in fact objected to by the governor of California and the mayor. My friends in Los Angeles that I've reached out to, I said, are these protests generally peaceful with a few bad apples, or are they too violent and out of control? And they all came back and said, generally peaceful, a few bad apples. That's what local law enforcement is for. And frankly, if the president thought that the federal agents needed some more assistance, he could have sent federal law enforcement, marshals, FBI, DEA. The choice to not do that, but instead flood the zone with Marines and National Guard, is to intimidate protests that Donald Trump does not like. He's using this for political ends and to distract people's attention. We're writing the defense bill right now, and you can be sure that my colleagues and I will be offering proposals to dramatically limit the ability of a president to use the military like his own palace guard in the way that President Trump is doing now.
It strikes me that General John Kelly, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, took the extraordinary step for a general and the former chief of staff of going on the record in a recorded interview and warning the country of just this, of what Donald Trump might do to active duty military in terms of deployments on the streets of American cities. We are on the other side of that hinge point. That has already happened, but you represent a state that could very well have protests over the weekend. What have you learned from the last 48 hours in California that you can apply this weekend in Virginia?
Well, there will be peaceful protests in Virginia this weekend. There's sort of a No King's Day set of events all around the country on June 14, and there will be a number of Virginia cities where there will be peaceful protests. Look, the First Amendment to the Constitution, which a Virginian, James Madison, drafted, says that Americans are guaranteed the right to peacefully assemble and petition government for redress of grievances. That was put in the Constitution not just to protect individuals. It was put in there because there was a belief that candid and robust discussion of views, even dissenting views, would help American democracy function better. So the first thing I'm saying to all Virginians and all Americans is Donald Trump, through use of the military, may be trying to frighten you away from using your First Amendment rights. Don't let it work. We're coming up on the 250th anniversary of American democracy in 2026, and we need brave, patriotic Americans who will not just embrace but will act upon their constitutional rights. Peacefully assemble and petition government to fix what's going wrong. And under this administration, an awful lot is going wrong with the economy, with mistreatment of all kinds of people, and with using the military in this way. So I'm encouraging people to be active, be peaceful, but be active. We need brave patriots to be active right now.
Will you join the protests on Saturday?
I am likely to be at one of the many events in Virginia, but I have many to choose from, so I will not be able to be at all of them.
What are your private conversations with your fellow Democrats about how to make this a bipartisan group that is both concerned about and protective of the men and women of the military who seem to increasingly be political pawns at the disposal of Donald Trump without any sort of checks on his power? We know that Mark Milley and Mark Esper stopped Trump from doing this at Stephen Miller's suggestion during the protests in 2020. I want to play you Mark Esper talking about why that was a bad idea then.
The option to use active duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort and only in the most urgent and dire of situations. We are not in one of those situations now.
So publicly, and we know from many books and articles that have been written, Mark Esper, Mark Milley, and others push back against people like Stephen Miller in 2020 to slow this down. It doesn't appear from the outside that there are many guardrails against Donald Trump using the military this time. And I wonder if there's an effort to gather a bipartisan coalition in the Senate to do just that.
Nicole, the opportunity we're going to have to do that is the defense bill that we are writing right now. We will likely finish work on the defense bill in the Senate Armed Services Committee in early July. And so we're in the run-up to it, and we will be offering amendments that everybody on the committee will have to vote for to try to put curbs in place so that the president cannot just willy-nilly deploy U.S. military against civilian protesters. I know some of my colleagues are concerned. Those concerns are mostly expressed privately. I was interested to see that Senator Rand Paul yesterday, when asked about the parade this weekend, said this looks like something you'd see in North Korea, not the United States. So there are some who are willing to speak out, even those who are generally supportive of President Trump. But look, you don't want to put the military to this. People don't join the military. One of my kids is a Marine. People don't join the military to face off against fellow Americans who are exercising their First Amendment rights to protest. That's not why they join. And can you imagine the heartache that would be involved in any situation where there's an escalation of violence and you end up with a situation like at Kent State or something like that from 1970, where Americans are badly wounded or even killed because of an unnecessary military escalation. This is also the kind of thing that our adversaries just watch us and they rub their hands with glee. When they see Americans pitted against Americans, instead of the American military effectively used in tandem with allies to check their overreach, they celebrate big time. Let's link arms as a country. Let's link arms with our allies and face off against our real adversaries. Let's not turn fellow Americans into adversaries.
This is a story that we cannot overlook, not just the abuses of power over our military that Donald Trump is carrying forth, but how he is deliberately trying to build an armed services that is loyal to him and not just him. His executive orders as well. That was so important to me in that report that we saw Senator Penny Murray bring up to Pete Hegseth that there are screenings saying that you have to pledge loyalty to whatever Donald Trump passes his agenda. So if he tweets crazy things in the middle of the night, what you swear? No to that. It is absurd. It is scary. We got to call it out. We're certainly going to be doing so on this show. And if you want to support that and support independent media, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. We're getting pretty close to 1 million. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Then, until next time, I'll see you soon.